Welcome to Making Ideas Work. I'm joined today by Büşra Coşkuner. Büşra, how did I do with the pronunciation of your name? I've been practicing, but is it okay?
It's okay. It's
Okay,
Coşkuner, but
Josh.
I even say typically I say don't even try it, so it's fine.
Well, Büşra, thank you so much for joining me. You're a product coach. In fact, on your LinkedIn profile, it says you're no BS product coach. I would love for you to bring that to life for us. What is it? Because actually, there's probably quite a lot of bullshit in the
Oh
product
yeah.
world, right?
Oh yeah.
But help us bring that to life, set some context maybe about your journey and what it is that you're doing and how you bring that kind of no bullshit view to the product world and help people that you're working with.
Sure. Well, actually, thank you for this question. Nobody asked this question so far, which is funny. I mean, I'm just, I'm screaming it out there, right, to the world. No bullshit product coach, and so far nobody has asked me what it actually means and where it actually comes from. So thank you for this question. Um, so I've been in product management for like we have 2023, right? had to had to count.
Still is,
What
yeah.
kind of like 13 plus years. So I started even before I finished my studies. Like with everything I did, I kind of ended up in product management. So I've always been there, and I moved from telecommunications to the digital space quite early from in my career. But I have worked in telecommunications long enough to see the differences. And for me, like back then, it's not so much time, right? 13 years is nothing. But back then, there wasn't. Maybe there was one book, maybe two, maybe three, but that's it. And like today, there are so many books, so many blogs, so many people and thought leaders who think they have figured it out. And there are so many perspectives. And my no bullshit approach basically says, people, there are so many perspectives. If you like, as soon as you talk in extremes, it has to be like this, it has to be like that, you're already bullshitting, because there's nothing like it has to be like this or that. Product management, and I don't agree with people who say it's a young discipline. It's not. It's been around for like, I don't know for how many years. um with history, I'm really bad with dates, right, and with years. But it comes from brand management back then, FMCG, Procter and Gamble. It comes from that brand management perspective, from a marketing and brand management perspective. And that's what, the 40s, the 50s, or something like that, or maybe even longer. So it has quite a lot of history, but it has always been this discipline of, it depends, right? So product management is, once I wrote a, it was kind of a joke, but I wrote something on LinkedIn saying, product management is the art of managing, it depends, right? And that's it, right? So as soon as you say like it has to be like this, or there's no way you could work this way, or you have to, my favorite example, you have to ditch deadlines. I'm like, wait a second, right? So, and I'm like, no. And why I'm saying I'm the no bullshit PM is because I try, and I'm guilty of this. I know that I did that in the past, and I will continue doing it, but I try to generalize as little as possible, because any generalization um, sprinkles false positives out there, right?
Got it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I try to avoid, and that's what I try to demystify, basically. And that's why I'm saying no bullshit. So I'm basically the person. Oh, and I'm a Berliner, right? So this is important to understand the no bullshit part. So in like, Berlin is a little bit of an island in Germany, and people from Berlin are very well known for being rude, right? So this is the rudest folk in Germany, and that is only because we from Berlin, we speak out what we think, and we don't try to find nice words for it. So if it's shit, then we say, hey, this is shit. We don't mean it in a rude men are like it, just the opposite. We think if we don't say that, this is rude because it's shit. Like,
Mm,
why should I say this is good if it's shit, right? And this would be disrespectful of the other person's actually lifetime, like the time that they spend from their life, right? So better to come to the point immediately, directly, openly, so that the person does not lose any time to actually make it better, right? But if it's good, we say, hey, this is amazing, this is
yeah,
amazing. We don't we don't try to keep it kind of okayish. If it's amazing, then we say it's amazing. And that's also where the no bullshit approach comes from, because I had to spend well, in Berlin I worked this way, and then I moved to Switzerland and I had to learn how to not be super direct, because
very
Swiss people
different
are the
cultures.
exact opposite of that. And I didn't like it because this is not me, right? I am the person who's direct, and when I see bullshit, I call it out. That's
I
me.
love that. I love that explanation as well. It's something that actually I think about a huge amount, both in my work, but also with my everyday kind of life as well. I think it's a kindness now
Yeah,
to call it out, to say what it is. I think about that classic of like, if I've got spinach in my teeth, if I've got chia seeds stuck in my tea, what? Tell me, because I need to know about that. If my
yeah,
if I this, and it's the same thing with product. It's the same thing with everyday life as well. If something isn't as it should be, if it's not as good as it, people need to know that, and it's a kindness now. And I think that's a really, really great approach. And of course, it doesn't work with every situation, but that's good as well, because people like you and I, we need to niche down. We need to be known for something which may be a bit like Marmite, that kind of, it's liked by some people, it's hated, or it's loved by some people, it's hated by others. And that's okay. It's much better to be like that than it is to be meh,
yeah,
average,
yeah.
okay. It's just, you want to be known for something different. I think I love
Exactly.
that. I love that whole response that you've got to that world.
And to add to that, what I don't like, and that's also a bit of a part of the no bullshit approach, is I don't like to stay theoretical too much. Theoretically, what we should do is XYZ. Yeah, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, now what does reality say, right? Is it like that? Is it the ideal situation like described in all the books? No. So what do we want? Do we want to turn it into that ideal situation? Okay, fine. Then we need to do XYZ. If we want to just survive in a not ideal situation, then we need to do XYZ. And to be very honest, not every situation can be turned into the ideal situation, right? Or can,
Mm,
like, the context, not every company can be transformed. Like, let's speak it out, right? Not every company can be transformed. Not every team can be high performing when their setup is not set up for success, right? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we
yeah,
have
yeah,
to decide, do we want to change or not? What do we do? What is our goal? And then what do we do? How do we deal with reality, right? Oh, ideally, product managers have a say in what should be built and whatnot. Real world scenario, well, you've got a lot of stakeholders and you're not the one who has the say in what needs to be done, right? Oh, um product managers are the CEO of the product and they're responsible for it and have to make sense. Well, yeah, thank you. Right? No. Well, if I was the CEO, I would do things very differently. So, kind of like this. Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so we get the analogy, we understand where it comes from and what is meant with that, but because it leaves like many theoretical approaches or um, statements leave so many false positives out there, right? I have the need to correct it.
Yeah, yeah. And
I'm
for the
not
better.
the wisest person in the world, so I might be wrong with a lot of things that I say, right? But I also might be right. So because, as I said in the beginning, it's perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But asking the question, challenging it is the key thing, right? That's the
Yeah,
important part of this. And
yeah,
also, I love what you're talking about there with regards to there's no right one single way to do things. It's a everything that I think of the product manager's tool belt as being something which is ever expanding, but it's not. You don't always pick out the hammer And often that's what you see. Often you see on LinkedIn, or you see on these posts, like the one tool that you need in order to reach product market fit, the one tool
Oh,
you need for
pff,
growth, whatever it is.
yeah, yeah.
Of course, yeah, and it doesn't work like that. The reality and the theory is fine, but when you get into practice, and the real application is very different. But I would love to move, if we can, to understanding what that means for you. What are the approaches that you have, and how do you work with teams to move them on to kind of build great products, or to build great teams that build great products? What's your kind of approaches and tools, and that kind of thing? I know that you have something which is yours, right? And you're going to be sharing this much more, the AIM method, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So-
Now the answer to your question will be, of course, it depends. Of course. It depends on the goal of the team, right? So I cannot come in and say like, this is my toolbox, and now I will just throw it all um, over the fence, and we'll see how you get along with that. So it really depends. Um, I get in to companies to either train their people or to coach their people. There's a little bit of a difference, right? When I train them, it depends on the skills that need to be trained, and it depends on the workflow that they're into at the moment, and an analysis of what's not working to understand where I need to get, like, which skill set or which tools or foundations I need to teach them, basically. When I get in as a coach, it's more like, when I get in as a coach, there are two options. So either I come in as an additional product coach during a transformation. So there is another coach who's leading the transformation, and I come in to support the team, or individual product managers. Then we have these regular phone calls where we basically go through the situation, what's happening, how they can deal with it, etc., etc. And if there is some need for a new framework, a new practice, a new method to learn, then we make workshops and so on. um, and then it really depends on what the topic is. Most of the time, we so what I see a lot is that we start, okay, start is the wrong word, because as I mentioned, they're already into the transformation and I come in as a support, right? But many problems are around outcomes, like working with outcomes, because that's the way how we actually move the transformation, right? So we try to get away from the list of features that the team should build, and we try to move towards the goal that the team gets, and they have to decide or find out and then decide how to achieve this goal. So it's typically a combination of working with outcomes and introducing discovery habits, um, or in general discovery practices. Let's say it doesn't
Hmm.
even have to be habits from the beginning, but discovery practices in a practical and pragmatic way, right? And there we have different approaches, and my way of looking at it is an end-to-end way, and then I see what we need from this end-to-end, like which piece we need from this end-to-end approach. That's the AIM method that you just mentioned, right? So I like to make sure. So what does AIM stand for? It's align, identify, measure. And I'm a huge fan of impact mapping, and I another word I use for it is impact mapping on steroids. And basically, what I like to do is I like to have the big picture first to understand, okay, what's the product strategy here? And how do we, like, if we want to move towards more product discovery, we don't do product discovery in a bubble, right? So we do it because we try to achieve a goal. Where
Hmm.
does the goal come from? So it's like Teresa Torres says it often enough, right? So it's a product outcome that is derived from the business goal, right? And that's the connection that I would like to see first. So we align. I like to align business goals with those product outcomes, and then go into discovery, or into the huge list of ideas that basically every team has, like 200, 300, I don't know,
Yeah.
like so big
Yeah.
that nobody can handle it anymore. And I'm not talking about the backlog yet, right? So that's even before the backlog. which then again is another 2,000 items or whatever. That's a different
Yeah.
problem.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the other way of handling it, right? So either you go into discovery and discover proper solutions for the product outcome that is derived from the business outcome, or you take all those ideas and the first thing that you do is you reduce them. You filter everything. That's what I call strategic prioritization, right? You filter out everything and move things away that do not align with the product outcome and the business goal in the end. And then you reduce that list already, and then you can go into more discovery and research, as in, validation, experimentation, whatever it needs, right? So a little bit of desk research for the one or the other thing, or maybe if there's another topic that where you only need to look into your analytics. So it depends on that level. It depends, right? um, and that's how we do the align, identify, measure steps. So we align business goals with product outcomes. Then we identify, actually even uh, once like one step before that, we identify the most important outcomes, because we have in the end like so many outcomes, right, that we could um, look into, but we have to focus, right? Strategy is about focus. So we focus on specific outcomes and say these are the ones where we see the biggest lever, and then we either go into discovery or into strategic prioritization, right? And then we make everything measurable, because if we cannot measure it, well, okay, I don't like the quote, if you can't measure it, you cannot manage it. I think it's a wrong quote. But we need to see some direction, right? So something that tells us, hey, we're not too far off.
Right, right,
And
right, right.
that's why we make it measurable. And that's why we create experiments for those things that are not yet measurable, because we're not so sure about it, right? Everything that we are not sure about it needs some more exploration. That's the AIM method. And from this method, so this is my mental model. This is how I look at any challenge. And then I see from those pieces, from this end to end view, what is it that we need in this team that I'm working with. Some teams only need, like, are very good at the alignment part and in the road mapping part, but they still don't know how to create good hypotheses, which ones they should actually prioritize, right? Like, so which experiments they should prioritize, how an experiment chain could look like, and how to actually manage a backlog that is a combination of like sprint stuff. Let's say
Yeah.
I don't like to call them tickets. Anyways, yeah. So sprint stuff, product backlog items is the professional word for it. Sprint stuff is my word. A mix of that and hypotheses to get tested, basically, right?
Yeah.
And then, like, some teams need support with that, then this is the part that we focus on. Some teams need support with alignment part, and with the rest they're actually fine, then we do only that part, right? Some teams only need to understand how they measure everything, because that's a practice that they don't practice it too much, and they somehow try to get started with that. Then that's what we focus on. So from this end to end connection and view, we pick the pieces that are missing.
Wow. Thank you so
That's a
much.
lot. That was a
It's a lot.
monologue.
But I love that. I mean, it's painted a picture of for me, and I know that you're a fan of trees, and this, like, this is the
Oh yeah.
vision that I have, right? Of this thing starting with aligning around the business, the business goals, maybe the sub goals that then branch out to areas of identifying firstly the outcomes, the product outcomes,
Yeah.
and then possibly from there moving to the specific solutions. And maybe there's multiple solutions, possibly there's uncertainty there as well, so there might be some hypothesis gathering, but ultimately getting to the measure of success of those solutions against, all tracked back to that business
Exactly.
goal. So everything is in line, everything is just leading towards this one big focus. And I think that, wow, like, totally right, that just feels like everything's pushing in the same direction, instead of, as we often see it with even within product teams, but definitely as you explode that out across multiple teams within an organization, there can be push and pull in all different directions. And therefore, the momentum and growth and change and transformation is so difficult to get going because everyone's in a different agenda. Everyone's looking at from different starting points, and it doesn't track back. That work doesn't track back to that kind of all important business goal. So I love that.
As it is with any framework, this is not a silver bullet, right? So it's a method that is supposed to help you to create some sort of first principles thinking so that you can do this alignment work. And what you just described, and I totally agree with that, is not going to magically go away, right? So the alignment part of this is where the product team, especially the product leader, should sit together with stakeholders or leaders from the other departments and really have this alignment on what's the biggest business focus that we have for this time horizon, right? And the reason why I call it impact mapping on steroids is it's really this impact mapping tree, right? So like goal, actors, outcome, and output, or actually the original terms are goal, actors, impact, and deliverables. But I use it a bit differently because for us, impact means something else, right? In product world,
Right.
impact means business goal,
Yeah.
and so I use it a bit differently. And this first part of aligning business goal, actors, and the outcomes is where the magic happens that you said, right? Where people, where the departments or the teams come together and actually make sure everybody is pulling in the same direction. And there, the time horizon is so. Impact mapping was invented by Gokaj. Well, he says he didn't invent it. For me, he's the inventor. um, um, and for example, he says the business goal should be not longer than 3 to 6 months, right? So it should not be a huge business goal for the year, for example. When we do the yearly planning or whatever, this wouldn't fit very well with the agile mindset anyways, right? Like planning the year ahead. So if we look into this quarter, what's the main, like the biggest, most important business goal? And that, like, answering this question is already very difficult because think of OKRs, right? We
Mm.
we tend to have um, uh, the rule of thumb is have three sets of OKRs, like plus minus, right?
Yeah.
So and then you have like this company level OKRs, and you have three of them. So which of these business outcomes is actually the most important one, right? So still not focused enough. And if you have three of them and you say, well, all of them are important, then you have to have three different trees, right? And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's a balancing act in the end.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, again, I use this quite a lot, or talk about this quite a lot. That until very recently, the word priorities wasn't plural. There was only ever one priority. You can only ever have one priority. So everything
Yep.
at some point needs to reach a point, which is the one single thing. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of work that backs that up in order to get to that one goal, in order to drive that single priority forward.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's just such an important thing. But this is one of the biggest challenges that I see with clients is, and the people that I work with is at that front end. It's about how do you get people saying no is really hard, right? But people need to realize that for every yes that they say, they're saying no to a whole load of other things. And so
Yeah.
they have to say no. They have to be that ruthless prioritization, as you say, strategic prioritization,
Yeah.
in order to really move the dial. And especially as you're working a lot in the kind of transformation world, and I've got a few questions around what that really means. But it's an even more important thing when you're transforming. People need to have clarity of and the direction of travel. And in fact, let's lead on to that. When you talk about transformation, what kind of, there seems to be lots of flavors of transformation. I remember being a digital transformation consultant a few years ago. Now that kind of changed, and agile transformation became the thing, and product method kind of transformation or product thinking transformation starts to happen. What do you mean when you're talking about transformation and the kind of work that you're doing with clients around transformation?
So I'm more like on the last point that you mentioned. So I work on bringing more product thinking into the companies, and so again, I'm not leading any transformation. So as you said, when you say yes to something, you have to say no to a lot of other things, right? And
Yeah.
like I'm not a transformation coach. Um, I know a lot of good people who can do that. So if anyone needs a transformation coach, reach out to me. I can I can make connections. It's not me, right? Um, when I join, then they are already on a journey
Mm.
and they have already done a couple of things. And I'm the person who comes in to upskill the people so that they can actually work in a transformed company. Um, which is another thing that needs to be done, right? So you cannot have the
Yeah.
same people with the same mindset than before and expect them to work in a completely new way. So you need to help them to transform their way of working as well, right? And now we can have the discussion about what's the difference between agile coach and product coach in that sense. Fine, let's skip that for now. All right. Um, but in general, what I see a lot is really this mindset shift, as in the leaders in some companies, also the product leaders, but in general, the leaders have to let go of this feeling that they have to control everything,
Mm.
right? I can understand that because in the end, like legally, they are the ones who have to who get I'm not sure if accountable or responsible is the right word, because I
Yeah,
told you in the
probably.
beginning about the language mesh, right? So so
I'd, yeah,
um
probably accountable. Like they have the
accountable.
fiduciary responsibility, but it's they're
Exactly.
ultimately they're accountable for failure or for success of the organization. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And legally, like it's them who
Yeah.
get a problem, right? If things go wrong. And therefore, I understand that the need and the urge to really control everything and make sure that everything works the way they want because they don't want to have problems, right? They don't want to get into any trouble. Um, at the same time, if they continue working this way and don't leave enough space for the product team to explore the right problem to solve and the right solution for this problem. That's the space where they need more autonomy, right? So, or like with product terms, it's empowerment. With agile terms, it's autonomy. It's the same.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no bullshit. It's the same. Yeah.
It's the same.
Anyways,
Yeah.
it's the same. And and basically, they need more autonomy to figure out what needs to be built,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
not only building the things right, but actually building the right things. And that's where the problem is, right? So like companies figured out how to build the thing right, fine. But it doesn't work the way that you just throw features over the fence and say like ship it. It doesn't work like that anymore.
No.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest gap that we are trying to close, basically.
It's yeah, it makes total sense. Maybe because I'm also in this world, but I think many of the people that listen, are broadly there or thereabouts as well. And I know that some people that listen will be trying to help their organizations see the light or see the opportunity when you can start to create the change within. And I think one of the things that you've just started to allude to here, which I think is important on so many levels, is this the importance of long term to change things over a long period of time needs much more than just a set of tools, a set of ways of working, a one big hit. Now everyone's transformed, or even buying in or like hiring in new teams can really hit some friction points when when you're trying to change. And what I love about what you've been talking about is the role of and the importance of the coach. And I want to kind of move on to, actually, I've got a quick question before I move on from there, is
Mm.
how do one of the things that I'm always grappling with is understanding the different roles as you say, the teaching or the training role, coaching role, and then I think there's a third which often I get confused about, which is kind of consulting as well. And I think oftentimes I'm like in each of, like I've got a foot in each of those steps, each of those pots. Somehow I've managed to get myself 3 feet,
Same
but you
here.
know,
Happens
how do you
naturally.
reconcile that yourself? How do you kind of switch modes, or is it just actually that this is a big map of what makes you you, and when you're going into work with organizations, often there might be a bit of each of those roles kind of needed from you. How do you kind of view that kind of map of training, coaching, and I guess consulting at times?
Mm. Yeah, so again, it depends. So yes, it's me who does everything, based on the need at hand, let's say. So, for example, um, there are product managers. So I'm a trainer for product managers rather than for product leaders. And sometimes I call myself a personal trainer of a product manager, right? So, like in fitness studios, right? So in gyms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wait, in German it's fitness studio. So in English it's gym, right?
Either.
Yeah. So like in gyms, for example, you have a personal trainer, right? So personal trainer assesses you and sees like how you're doing, and what goal, like what's the goal that you're trying to achieve with going to the gym, right? And then based on
Mhm.
that, they create a plan for you, and then they show you how to do it, and then you do it, right? And I'm a bit like that for product managers, right? So when I say I'm a trainer, then I'm a personal trainer for product managers, basically. So I do one-on-one training, which is quite a lot of work because I create learning material, I give homework, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like a personal teacher, a private
Mhm.
teacher. I do train also groups, and I do that rather with workshops.
Yeah.
Um, than with training programs. I know a lot of coaches who do foundational trainings, for example. I don't do foundational training, so I come in where I think, or when PMs are at a specific level already, or if they're not, then I'm more the coach than a trainer, because what they need first, and the consultant, because what they need first is they need to close the gap to get to a specific level where online courses and articles and I don't know, your most favorite product management influencer is not enough anymore, right?
Right.
But in the beginning, these are enough. This is enough material that helps you actually get to work in product management. And then here and there, you might need a coach who actually guides you, or coach and mentor, let's say, who guides you to the right direction, either personally by asking questions of, typical, like really classic coaching stuff, or as a mentor who's a couple of steps ahead of you and can show you, or can point you to the right resources to help you continue with your growth journey, right? And when you then get to a specific point, then I can train you on the more advanced stuff, right?
Got it.
It's kind of like the combination. At the same time, as a consultant, you're more like an advisor, right? So when you work with a team, so actually when you work with a product leader, you're more like a consultant and advisor, because the product leader is the person who can make decisions, right? And when you advise somebody to do something, but they don't have the ability to make a decision, so
Yeah.
why do you advise anyone for doing anything, right? And that, like, I have a couple of product leaders as coaches that I do a mix of coaching and advising, and then it can work, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
advising or consulting a team has the nature of a mix of mentoring and training anyways.
Yeah. 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 I love that analogy. You're like the PT for PMs. Like I think that's a really great way to put this, because you're totally right. And all of those stages that you talked about, analyzing and figuring out where you are and where you want to be, really, and then devising that plan, that journey, that process, whatever it is, and then the continuous support, right, and pushing and guiding and getting people to that next level, building up their confidence, that habit, maybe going from discovery practice into now it's becoming habits. These things are becoming part of them. The mindsets are starting to shift because, again, culture change and transformation is so hard. And people just think that they can magically sprinkle some dust and say, we're going to now be agile, or now we're going to be product led, or now we're going to be XYZ. And it just happens, right? Yeah, like some magic mystical power.
Yeah,
But it takes really hard work, and it
it
takes
is. It is.
continuous progress. And I
Yeah,
think, and it makes me also think at this point about how you support people to kind of, as we've talked about previously, grow their craft, right? Because
exactly.
in many worlds, product being one of the biggest one, and I guess the kind of three disciplines of product design and engineering as well. For our natural ambition, our natural human instinct is to grow upwards in terms of roles and levels that we're kind of able to achieve within an organization. And often that means that people are doing completely different jobs to what they originally were trained around, or the things that they kind of built this skill set around. It often means people management instead of product
Yeah.
management. But you see something slightly different, or you see a future, I think, slightly different. And this is, I think, again, where product coaches come in. Is that, have I kind
Absolutely.
of got that right? And help us to understand what that other view might be, um, that helps people to still keep that foot in the door of the product world instead of becoming just a people manager.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, being a people manager is a completely different job, right? So it's as you said, requires a different skill set, and you have different tasks.
Exactly, and I was going to say that's not a bad thing, right? We need
Yeah,
people managers, right? They are important
exactly.
parts. I'm not trying to say that just a people manager, like that's a really important part of the job, or part of a business, but actually, it's not the way that everyone wants to go.
Exactly. That's something that two sides have to be aware of, right? The person who wants to grow in their career, as well as the person or the group of people who actually want to promote this person, right? So they need to be aware it's a different job. It's not the same job anymore. So what got you here might not get you there, right?
Right.
And even if you get there, it doesn't mean that you're going to stay there. So there's a solution for that too, right? Like get a product leadership coach if you got there and now you're totally overwhelmed and you're like, fuck, I'm going to do now? Like, what should I do now? And get a product leadership coach. So that's like clarified. Okay, but the other path, right? So here's the thing: um, we talk about individual contributors, right? So these ICs want to stay ICs, right? They want to continue working on a product. So what is the other option after you're a senior product manager, right? And now, thankfully, like more and more companies open up a new career path, which is um, above senior, let's say. It's a bit of a mix of the titles at the moment. So I saw staff product manager, I saw principal product manager, I saw distinguished product manager. So you have to read a bit between the lines, or you need to read the job ad and have to ask the right questions in the interview to figure out what level that actually means. But from what I read, like when we follow the software engineer career path, then after senior product manager, there should either be the group product manager or directly the staff product manager, and then the principal product manager. What does that mean? It basically means you are like from the seniority level at the same level like a head of product, VP product, and so on and so forth. Also from the salary level, you should expect the same, more or less, but you don't take care of people. So your task is not to manage people, to grow people, to make sure that people do the job, right? So you continue doing your job, you still work on the product, but maybe in a more strategic level, right? So what we know today is like when you start as a junior product manager, you get told what you should do, and you should
Mm,
ship it. Okay, fine. When you become more senior, you start to have your own area a little bit, and you have to decide. on your area a little bit, right? The more senior you get, the more strategic work you do for your own product, but also at one point for other products and for other teams. A friend of mine, a senior product manager, was asked from her for manager to actually create the goals not only for her product and her product development team, but also for the other teams. And she was like, Büşra, I don't know how to do that. I can do it for my team, but I don't know how to do it for the others. So she's definitely above senior, so
Yeah.
that she has kind of the brain capacity to do it, but don't know, she doesn't know how, right? And that's where I get in and work out with her how she can now get into a more advanced level, right? This is not what I want to talk about. So this was more like an example of how this IC career path can continue, right? So you are not only responsible for your own product anymore and for your own team, but also for other teams. Another example of someone else I spoke to was that she said she was creating strategies for the other products, like for the actually portfolio, for the whole portfolio, and she was responsible for the strategy. She was not the head of product. There was a other product leader who was the head of product and was taking care of the people management part of things, right? Well, actually, I think even CPO, not head of product, but CPO. And so that was how they split the role of a product leader, right? So one person for the whole people management part, and not only people management, right? So as a product leader, you also have to take care of team topology, and how do we set up the company, how do we make sure that we
Mhm.
achieve the business results, right, that
Yeah.
we need to achieve our business goals, right? So you are still responsible for that part, but you don't work too much on the portfolio anymore, like in this specific example, right? So she was working on the portfolio, right? So that was the cut. So there are different ways how you can distribute the duties of a product leader between, well, you and someone else, right?
Mhm.
Also, a new career path is being a product coach, and not only freelance but also employed. Like I also had a short employment with a company as a product coach. It's possible, right? And this is good. Like if you're someone who actually wants to focus on people development, but you are not an HR person, and you kind of want to focus only on the product side of the things, you can become a product coach. Then we have product operations, right? Product ops. I'll be very honest with you, I'm still not like 100% convinced on that. I have a conversation with someone that I need to publish at one point. This kind of helped me, but to understand better which type of companies might need product ops and whatnot. But that's a completely different topic. Let's not go too
Yeah.
deep into that. But that's another career path for individual contributors, right? So, and I'm
Got it.
happy that we now have those different career paths. The question is like how to get people to perform in those new career paths, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I think it's so good to hear. I think I've been one of those people historically that has found that progression path, that traditional progression path, really challenging. You know, I'm, I once told I was a product leader in an organization. I was once told that I was a shit people manager, and like that has, I mean, this was 10 years ago, right? Probably 10 years now, and it's still something that I talk about. It's still something that I feel because I'm like, I don't really know whether I was shit or
Exactly.
not. I don't know whether I was, and I think the reality of it was that I didn't lead people or manage people in the way that she wanted me to, that my boss wanted me to. I had a different style, a different way of getting people on board. But that really kind of threw so many questions into my head about is management, people management, the journey I want to get to when I'd kind of reached this ceiling, if you like, of what I thought I could do as an individual contributor. And I think now in a different, you know, if I was in that position now, I think I would be going through a very different path of progression towards more the coaching style, because I think that much more taps, which is probably what I was ultimately anyway. My leadership style was very much kind of coaching style rather
Mm.
than command and control, and getting people to do all the things that I tell them to do, and just pushing down shit down to those it was much more of a coaching style. So I think ultimately that's probably where I would have navigated. So it's great to hear that there are these true progression paths that are becoming available now, and as you say, both from a freelance perspective, but also now starting to get those roles within organizations as paid employees as well, which is fantastic to hear.
Yeah, I love this. I love this development, really.
Yeah, it's
It's
amazing.
great.
I want to just move on to talk a little bit, if we can, about maybe strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm someone who, so most of the work that I do is often at the very early stage of product ideas. It's about, very brand new product ideas, about design sprints, about really super early things. Um, a lot of the work, and it seems that you're doing, maybe it touches on a lot of that, but also much more about implementation and continuous progression and continuous discovery, and kind of building out new approaches for teams that have already got something established. I have this um, challenge again around strategy, product strategy, particularly at an early stage. And I know that you wrote something um, on LinkedIn that I'd love to dig into a little bit.
It's
And
haunting
I
me.
think, yeah, a little bit of stalking here, apologies.
Yeah.
But you wrote, stop wasting time on creating a product strategy for new products. And I know that that's a headline, and actually, if you read deeper into it, and actually, there's a video associated with this as well. Which, by the way, anyone that's watching, go and check out Bushra on LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn content's fantastic.
Thank you.
It's really challenging at times as well. It's provocative at times. It's kind of getting people to ask questions of themselves as well as their kind of beliefs and processes as well, which is brilliant. But
I'm a coach.
how, yeah, yeah. Product strategy, like,
Yeah.
help us unpick the importance of this at those different stages. Is it something that people need to have when it's a brand new product or not? Over to you.
Yeah. So um, let's clarify one thing first. So I have a big background in B2C and prosumer. So B2B, I have looked into it, let's put it this way. So I have some opinions, but I'm not like the expert in all of the nuances of B2B. Okay,
Cool.
so let's clarify this first. And majority of things that I write about is more on the level of B2C or prosumer, where you have a lot of data available and this kind of things, right? So I'm the data person as well,
Yeah.
and where you can really move fast and break things. And B2B, things are different. So let's clarify this first, right? Well, um, and I should have clarified it in that post as well, right? So I'm trying to be very mindful about what I write and how I influence people with what I write. And so again, I might not be the perfect writer in every post. Clarify that as well. So this post was, or I created that post after a conversation with somebody else, and that's why the video quality is poor, because it was actually not meant to go public. So it was more like, look, I can explain it better to you while I sketch something on a Miro board while I'm on vacation and had very little sleep. Okay, that's the background of that.
But honestly, though, just don't put yourself, don't put this or yourself down in that. I think it's raw, that it comes through as something more meaningful because of its rawness and because of its, like, you just had this thing that you've got to get out, and therefore I'm sharing it. And I love that. I'm a big fan of that kind of thing. It's incredibly hard to do. It's incredibly hard to click on the publish button, but
And
thank you for doing it.
that was really because I'm saying that because I received a DM saying, Bushra, I really have to say the quality of the video is shit, and I know you can do it better. I was like, I know I can do it better, but this was so spontaneous. Like, I know the quality is shit, you know. That's why I'm saying that. So for anyone who wants to watch the video, just this is the background of it. Okay. So the thing is, what I was trying to explain in my conversation with the other person was the following. Um, so again, B2B is a bit different. Um, When you start with an idea, you have one big goal, which is find product market fit. So, classic entrepreneurship and customer development, right? So, we have so many new words for old stuff, but this is just pure customer development.
Yeah.
Um, Finding product market fit means customer development. So, either you have an idea and you try to find the group of people who have a problem that is severe enough to be worth solving it, and your solution is a good solution for this problem, and then you sell this to those people, and then you try to sell this repeatedly, then you know you have product market fit. Or you start with a group of people and find out everything about them that you can and want, and find those gems, those problems worth solving, or desires or needs to like unmet needs or desires, to help them achieve, right? And then you build a solution for that. So
Yeah.
it's one of
But
those
by
two
the
things.
way, I'm gonna pause just for a second if I can, just because I think what you just talked about is so refreshing to hear. Because again, it's both. It's, there's no one or right one answer. A lot of people go, it has to be jobs to be done first, and you've got to identify those unmet needs, and then you build the product afterwards. Other people are build a product and then they try to, and it feels like they're doing the wrong thing. But I love the fact that you're talking about it can be both of these things. Both of these routes work, right? They
Yeah,
do, they just do.
yeah,
But ultimately, you need to find the right people with the right product, and then you continue
exactly.
from there.
And actually, it's really not a bad thing to start with an idea. A, this is natural, right? So we
Yeah,
humans always think in solutions, so this is natural. And B, and that's the tricky part, right? So if you're not too you need to be not too attached to this idea. As long as you're not too attached to the idea, right? So don't fall in love with the solution. Love,
yeah, yeah,
I don't like this quote either, but right. So if you're not too attached to the idea, then you are open enough to listen to what people say. If you
yeah,
ask the right questions, of course, read the mom test. That's the only thing that you need to start out. Read the mom test. Very small book, really, it's amazing. You need only that to get started. um, and when you ask the right questions and are open for their feedback, then you will automatically change the idea 100%. Okay, let's say 90%. There's still like 10% of people who
yeah,
stick with the same idea because they figure out it's the right idea. Maybe they're biased, maybe it's really the right idea, it's fine. But 90% of the time you will change it automatically anyways, based on the learning that you will have. So therefore, it doesn't matter how you start. Having said that, pre-product market fit, why I say you don't need a product strategy is because you have one goal, which is find product market fit. Make a sale repeatedly for the same solution for a specific target group in a specific market. That's what you're trying to do. When I talk about, and here's the language aspect, right? So we chatted before the recording started that I'm speaking three languages, right? Turkish, German, and English. And in German, being strategic means long term. Strategy is attached to time, so this is long term thinking. Then we actually, like in German we say strategic level, tactical level, operational level.
mm.
There's a difference, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah, yeah, yeah,
English
yeah, yeah,
terminology, it's strategic and tactical. That's it.
yeah.
And then maybe
Absolutely, yeah,
there is daily operations, whatever. But so here's the thing. So when you want to create a strategy, either way, it's long-term thinking, right? And then you have to come up with tactics how to actually um, apply the strategy. Let's say it's not just the roadmap, it's tactics. It's really tactics. So you have maybe a roadmap in between, but the tactical aspect is a short-term aspect. So when I say you don't need a strategy, then I say you don't have to think too much in advance into the future. you can have, like, it doesn't mean you don't have to think, you have to think, right? So is this the right target group, is this the right market, etc., etc., because my end goal is to get actually here, right? And then you try to find your path, but your end goal might be even wrong.
Yeah.
Like in
Yeah.
the, like, pre PMF, even your end goal might be wrong, even your vision might be wrong, because you're learning so much. And in like fast speed learning, right, you're learning so much, like everything that you learn might change everything that you've done up until that point, right? And
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying don't spend too much time for long term thinking. Like, have a thought, have an idea where the journey should head towards, have a vision, yes, have that, but be open for being wrong very often pre PMF.
Mm, mm. I love that. Again, uh, I think it's absolutely right. I think there's a different approach that's needed at early stage uh, comparison to later stage. And again, we were talking about this earlier about this kind of explore versus exploit mode. And
Yeah,
you know, I was going to use the word innovation, but I know that that's loaded for so many people. I think of innovation as doing something new that adds, creates, or delivers value, and that's really it. And you can do that in both of those areas. And when you're kind of an exploit of kind of improving and sustaining and making things more efficient, your product more efficient, or your processes more efficient, or whatever else, or you're doing that in a kind of a transformational way with something brand new. But and there are different modes that you need to have. And I think it's Alex Osterwalder actually that talks about um, this idea that every idea looks the same in the beginning. There's no way of telling whether your idea is good or bad. In
yeah,
the beginning, you have to go through process of experimentation, of hypothesis gathering, and experimentation to
exploration.
see, and exploration. Right? Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's what
And
I'm
that's the reason.
saying.
Yeah. With
I'm sorry.
strategy, therefore, like it's a long time horizon, and I think what you're saying there, therefore, is think about these things, think strategically, think about the right approaches, but you don't need to spend a lot of time building a strategy to get there. You just need to be thinking and testing and experimenting and bringing in those
Exactly.
tactics of exploration.
It's important to have a product vision at one point, right? So
Sure.
because otherwise you don't have a compass at all, and you go blind. Like you could go in any direction if you don't have a product vision, right? um, but that's your main guide in the end. Like pre PMF, your main guide is product vision. So that's what, for example, what I say is, there are the three strategy horizons, right? Exploit, expand, explore. And when you're in the explore phase, you actually start, like any product journey starts with explore. So you start from the back, right?
Mhm.
And in explore mode, you can't work with short-term data and short-term goals in the explore field. The explore field is where magic happens around the product vision, right? So there you have the product vision, and you try to find a starting point. You try to find the first stepping stone that you want to step on before you jump into exploit. So after explore, you try to exploit that, right? Then you
Right.
start from the beginning. And then you exploit. And when you exploit, then you can start to create a strategy, right? Because then
Yeah.
the question is, how do we get or how can we increase market share? This is
Yeah.
exploit. How can we increase? Sorry, and now you can think strategically, right? And this is what I tried to explain in the video. Then you can have this chess game basically, right? And then you can be like, okay, if we're here, if we're on this stepping stone, the next big stepping stone that we try to jump to is, I don't know, this geographical region focusing on this adjacent target group that is adjacent to where we are at the moment, um, which has which has the same problem like the target group that we're focusing on now, but needs a different messaging, so that we can actually, that we only need to change our marketing so that we can um, address them as well, right? So this could be a thought, right? And then what's the next and so on and so forth. And basically you try to stay where you are and exploit everything around that stepping stone. And then when you want to expand, you will see if the next stepping stone that you have defined is really the right stepping point to
Mm.
expand to, or if you maybe need to find a different one because that was not the right one, right? So it's still open for change, and that is strategy, right? Strategy is a set of hypotheses in the end that you believe will help you to achieve your goals. I think Said Khan was the one who wrote that under that post that you mentioned. um,
Yeah,
really appreciate, he's a no bullshitter as well, and I really appreciate his views. And that's the essence, right? So it's a set of hypotheses that you believe will help you achieve your goals. If you think, if you find out, because you still explore, you still discover, right? So that's not over, you just add planning into the mix. And if you find out that's the wrong stepping stone to expand, well, then you will find a different one, right? And then
yeah,
maybe your whole strategy changes, also fine.
that's okay.
But your product vision is set, right?
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
And
Thank you
that's
so much.
different pre-PMF and post-PMF. So yes, it's
Yeah,
just more about don't spend too much time on it. Pre-PMF. Have a thought, have a direction, but don't spend too much time on it.
yeah, absolutely. It's wise words. I think it's so important uh, that we kind of understand these different approaches, different modes, and help people to to make a difference to either whether that be in their goal is all about product market fit or whether their goal is about growth and it's about market share. Those different approaches are so important, but there are
Exactly.
many tools, mindsets, approaches that can help with all of those things. We are rapidly, I cannot believe where the time has flown. We're rapidly getting towards the end of this episode. So there's just a couple of things that I want to kind of finish off with. Firstly, is there, by the way, before I go into that, I want to say I know the video quality. You talk about this video quality wasn't great, but I know what it's like when you have something that you want to create, and the the striving for the perfect high production value video means that the thing never comes out. So I know what that's like. I've done that so many times. The fact that this exists and it's something that we can then have a conversation about, for me, is more important than it being high quality and whatever else. Of course, you could recreate this in high quality, and that might be something that you would one day do. I think it's worth doing, but there's so much that you cover during that video. I've dipped in and out of it continuously over the last few weeks. Things about the adoption curve and the kind of crossing the chasm between those differences between pre-product market fit, post-product market fit. There's so many things that you talk about from the tactical level, from the operational level, from the strategic level, the importance of planning in certain areas. So I think you cover such a lot of ground. I think these, personally, I'm a believer that these things need to exist out in the world. And so for me, don't listen to that person that said it wasn't good enough quality. Of course, that feedback is helpful for you, and it means that you can strive and make things better in the future. But it's out there, and I love it, and it's better being out
Thank you.
than never being out.
Thank you. It was, no, it was a good feedback. So kind of like,
Great.
okay, I understood
Yeah.
there was somebody who actually watched the video. Yeah, because that's the tricky part on LinkedIn, right? So you write a catchy, controversial post, add a link to a video, and nobody watches the video, and everybody
Right.
only comments on what you wrote, right? So
Yeah.
this was a
Definitely
good
a
learning
challenge.
for me. Let's put it this way.
Definitely a big challenge.
Yeah.
But I wanted to finish off with, Bushra, is there anything else that we haven't talked about? And I know there's some topics that we were going to maybe talk about, but I think maybe we'll leave that for maybe another time. We'll do a round two sometime to talk about some of those other bits and bobs, because there's so much that you could talk about. But is there anything that you want to kind of get across to anyone else that you think maybe we've left out about you and the practice and what it is that you're doing?
um Maybe one thing that's, so I will not mention all the other buzzwords that we were planning. So maybe if we do another episode and let's talk about those other topics. Maybe let me end this with telling everybody that if you feel like an imposter, this is normal. There is so much to learn. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. The topic isn't like the discipline isn't new, but in the tech scene, it's evolving. You hear these stories like from Airbnb ditching the product management function. I'm like, no, they're just moving it back to where it was before. Like, no. um, don't panic. Things will change, things will evolve, and it's good that these
It's good.
changes happen, because we have to try things out to find a way to make it work for us. That's the no bullshit thing, right? So don't stick with a theory, make sure it works for yourself and your company, and feel free and be open to experiment a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It's such an important message that we don't hear enough. So I'm really glad that you made sure that we were focusing on that as well, and that people have that confidence in themselves. I wanted to also thank you in general for this conversation, for bringing that no bullshit approach. And so it's so much a part of you, and it comes through in the way that you talk. It comes in through in how you deliver things on LinkedIn and the messaging and whatever else. And I'm sure it comes through really strongly with the clients, all for the better of them and yourself and the rest of the product community. So thank you for keeping on pushing with that approach, keeping on with sharing so openly things that are going on in your head and the practice that you're kind of developing and evolving. I recommend anybody, and I'll make sure there's links for this as well, but I recommend anyone to go and follow you on LinkedIn. I know that you're growing that seemingly pretty significantly at the moment, so keep on going with that. And I think anyone that's listening should be definitely going over and checking you out on LinkedIn and all the other places. We'll put some links down. Where else should people go in order to find out more about you, other than LinkedIn, as we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I have a blog at busra.co. Um, so spoken Busra dot co. I don't like that. When people don't say the sh of my name, I don't like that. Anyways, so there I have a blog, so slash blog. So there you can find more about my thoughts. I promised myself to write more articles. It's a bit difficult to balance everything. So I'm
Yeah,
working part time, have a little one that is sick from time to time, so that I don't work those days that I have to take care of her when she's sick. Trying to balance that with client work, with at the same time being as open as I can about sharing stuff, right? I want people to evolve. I want people to grow their craft and their careers. And one way of me trying to do this is with my articles and with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is easier partially for me than like creating a lot of articles, but I promise myself to do that more often. So there you can follow me as well. You can subscribe to a ping that you would get whenever I create a new article. um I'm on Twitter, or what, X now, right? Oops. You see, I don't use it often enough. I should change that.
yeah,
And otherwise, I'm here and there on podcasts, on webinars, on things that hopefully help people
yeah.
to grow their craft. And if you need a personal trainer to grow your craft, or for your team, you can also approach me. Also, if you want to run some workshops with your team to, create better product practices, to build better
Amazing.
products, then reach out to me. Whether it's about impact mapping, like pure impact mapping, whether it's about my AIM method as a workshop, North Star metric, hypothesis driven product management. So these are kind of my love topics,
Got it.
but
Yeah,
also like strategy creation and anything else that you feel like, oh, do you do this as well? Just reach out and then we can see.
amazing. Well, look, thank you so much, Bushra. There's a reason that you were recently voted top 30 women in product in Europe.
Thank you.
There's clearly a reason for this.
I thought
Um,
you
congrat-
forgot this.
Congratulations on it. It's a worthy a
Yeah,
worthy
I'm
award, and
blushing.
yeah, but of course, but no, it's well deserved, clearly. So keep on going. Thank you so much for the time today. It's been an absolute joy, and I really hope that we get the chance to do a round two some other time.
It was a pleasure, really. I love the conversation. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, totally open for episode 2.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Take care.
You too. Bye.